Marcus Thompson never imagined that a simple walk to the bathroom would make him an internet sensation. At 24 years old, he had just landed his dream job as a royal guard at Buckingham Palace. After months of rigorous training, background checks, and interviews, he was finally wearing the iconic red tunic and bearskin hat that represented centuries of British tradition. The morning of September 15th started like any other training day, except this time it was real. Marcus stood at attention outside the palace gates, his heart pounding with excitement and nervousness. Tourists were already gathering, phones ready to capture the famous changing of the guard ceremony. He had practiced this routine hundreds of times, but knowing that millions of people would potentially see him made everything feel different. His supervisor, Sergeant Williams, had given him clear instructions during the morning briefing. "Thompson, you're on the main gate today. Remember, no matter what happens, you do not break character. You are a statue. You are a symbol of the crown. Tourists will try everything to get a reaction from you, but you remain perfectly still and silent." Marcus nodded confidently. He had heard all the stories from veteran guards about tourists making faces, telling jokes, and even trying to touch them. During training, he had successfully maintained his composure through mock scenarios where instructors had done everything possible to break his concentration. He felt ready for anything. The first few hours went smoothly. Crowds gathered around him, taking selfies and photos. Children pointed and whispered, wondering if he was real. Parents explained to their kids about the important job the guards did protecting the royal family. Marcus felt proud to be part of something so meaningful and historic. Around noon, the autumn sun was beating down unusually strong for September. The heavy wool uniform and tall bearskin hat were designed for London's typically cool weather, not the unexpected heat wave that had struck the city. Sweat began forming under Marcus's hat, trickling down his forehead. His mouth felt dry, and his legs started to ache from standing motionless for hours. But Marcus remembered his training. Guards were expected to endure physical discomfort without showing any signs of distress. He focused on his breathing and tried to ignore the growing discomfort. The crowd around him seemed to grow larger as the day progressed, with tour groups stopping to learn about the guards and their traditions. A group of American tourists approached, led by their enthusiastic guide who was explaining the history of the Royal Guards. "These gentlemen undergo intense training and are active military personnel," the guide explained. "They're not just ceremonial. They're highly skilled soldiers who take their duty very seriously." Marcus felt a surge of pride hearing those words. This was exactly why he had wanted this job. It wasn't just about standing still and looking impressive. He was part of an elite group of soldiers with a sacred duty to protect the monarchy and uphold centuries of tradition. As the afternoon wore on, the heat became more intense. Marcus could feel perspiration building up under his thick uniform. His feet, in the heavy black boots, were beginning to throb. The bearskin hat felt like it weighed twice as much as it had that morning. But he remained perfectly still, his rifle held at the proper angle, his eyes staring straight ahead. A group of teenagers approached, clearly trying to get him to react. They made funny faces, told jokes, and even started doing a silly dance in front of him. Marcus had been warned about this exact scenario. He kept his expression neutral and his body completely motionless. The teenagers eventually gave up and moved on, slightly disappointed but impressed by his discipline. The pressure in Marcus's bladder had been building for the past hour. During training, they had been taught techniques for managing bodily functions during long guard duties, but the combination of the morning's coffee, the heat making him sweat and then drink more water during his brief break, and the natural nervousness of his first day had created a perfect storm. He tried to shift his weight slightly, hoping to relieve some of the pressure, but immediately caught himself. Even the smallest movement could be noticed by the watchful tourists and photographers. He had to maintain the perfect posture. He had practiced thousands of times. The afternoon crowd was particularly large, with several news crews filming segments about royal traditions. Marcus noticed cameramen positioning themselves at various angles, capturing the guards for what seemed like important broadcasts. The last thing he wanted was to be the guard who broke protocol on camera. His training kicked in, and Marcus began using the mental techniques he had learned for enduring discomfort. He focused on his breathing, counted backwards from 100, and reminded himself of the honor of wearing the uniform. But the physical pressure was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. A family from Japan approached with their young daughter, who couldn't have been more than 5 years old. She stared up at Marcus with wide, curious eyes, clearly fascinated by his tall hat and colorful uniform. Her father explained in broken English to the gathering crowd how the guards were real soldiers, not actors or performers. The little girl suddenly reached out her tiny hand toward Marcus's leg, wanting to touch the red fabric of his tunic. Her mother quickly pulled her back, apologizing profusely to the invisible guard who couldn't respond. But the brief moment of human connection reminded Marcus why this job mattered so much to him. As the clock approached 3 in the afternoon, Marcus knew he had about an hour left before the next changing of the guard. He had made it through most of his first shift successfully. The crowd seemed impressed by his unwavering discipline, and he hadn't made any of the rookie mistakes that some new guards were known for. But the physical pressure was becoming overwhelming. The combination of heat, dehydration, and his body's natural needs was creating a crisis that his training hadn't fully prepared him for. He tried to remember if there were any emergency protocols for situations like this, but his mind was becoming clouded by the increasing discomfort. The irony wasn't lost on him that he was protecting one of the most famous buildings in the world, but he couldn't protect himself from the most basic human need. Marcus closed his eyes for just a split second, gathering his strength and determination. He had come too far and worked too hard to let his first day be anything less than perfect. Little did he know that in just a few minutes, one small human moment would change everything, not just for his career, but for how the entire world viewed the Royal Guards. The cameras were still rolling, the crowd was still watching, and Marcus Thompson was about to become the most famous Royal Guard in internet history. The moment that would change Marcus Thompson's life forever happened at exactly 3:17 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. He had been standing guard for nearly 6 hours, and his body was reaching its absolute limit. The pressure in his bladder had become so intense that he could barely think about anything else. His legs were shaking slightly, though he hoped no one in the crowd could notice. A large tour group from Germany had just arrived, their guide speaking loudly about the discipline and dedication of the Royal Guards. "These men can stand for 8 hours without moving," the guide announced proudly. "They are trained to ignore all distractions and discomfort. They represent the finest military tradition in the world." Marcus felt the weight of those words. Here he was, supposedly representing the finest military tradition, and he was struggling with something as basic as needing to use the bathroom. The shame of potentially failing on his first day, mixed with the physical agony he was experiencing. Then it happened. A small child, probably around 3 years old, broke away from his parents and ran directly toward Marcus. The toddler was laughing and reaching up toward the shiny buttons on Marcus's red tunic. Without thinking, Marcus's natural instinct kicked in. He looked down at the child and took a small step backward to avoid any contact. That single step, that one moment of breaking character, released the pressure he had been holding for hours. It wasn't dramatic or obvious to most people, but Marcus felt the warm sensation spreading down his leg inside his thick wool trousers. His face turned red with embarrassment and horror as he realized what had just happened. The German tour guide had noticed the slight movement, and was now staring directly at Marcus with a confused expression. A few people in the crowd began whispering, pointing out that the guard had moved. Marcus quickly returned to his rigid position, but the damage was done in more ways than one. What Marcus didn't know was that Sarah Chen, a 22-year-old social media influencer from California, had been live-streaming her London vacation to her 2.3 million followers. She had been filming the guards for the past 10 minutes, explaining British culture to her audience. Her phone had captured the entire incident in high definition. "Oh my God, guys," Sarah whispered into her phone's camera, trying to be discreet. "I think something just happened to that guard. Did you see him move? And wait, ... She zoomed in slightly, and her sharp eyes noticed the wet patch that was becoming visible on Marcus's red trousers. I think he might have had an accident." Marcus stood frozen, not just by protocol now, but by pure mortification. He could feel the wetness spreading, and worse, he could smell the unmistakable odor. The thick wool uniform that was designed to look impressive was now trapping the evidence of his humiliating moment. The crowd around him was growing larger, and Marcus noticed more people starting to point and whisper. A teenager with a smartphone was recording. Having noticed the commotion, an elderly British woman was explaining to her grandson what she thought she had witnessed, though she was trying to be polite about it. Sergeant Williams was scheduled to check on all the guards in about 20 minutes. During his regular afternoon rounds, Marcus knew that protocol demanded he remain at his post until officially relieved, but he also knew that his situation was becoming increasingly obvious to everyone around him. Sarah's livestream was gaining viewers rapidly. Her follower count was climbing as people shared her stream, drawn by her excited commentary about witnessing Royal Guard drama. Comments were flooding in from viewers around the world, with people asking questions and making jokes about what they were seeing. "Guys, this is actually really sad," Sarah said to her camera, her tone becoming more sympathetic. "This poor guy is just trying to do his job, and he's obviously having a really tough day. I feel bad for filming this, but it's already happening, you know." But the internet doesn't pause for sympathy. Within minutes of Sarah's stream gaining traction, screen recordings were being made. Viewers were clipping the moment and sharing it across different platforms. The hashtag #RoyalGuardDown was starting to trend on social media. Marcus could hear more cameras clicking around him. A group of French tourists had noticed the growing attention and were taking photos, unsure of what they were documenting but sensing it was something unusual. A British news reporter who happened to be nearby doing the story about tourism was alerted by her cameraman that something interesting was happening with one of the guards. The physical discomfort Marcus was experiencing was nothing compared to the emotional anguish. This was supposed to be the proudest day of his life, the culmination of months of training and preparation. Instead, He was standing in his own urine while strangers recorded his humiliation for the world to see. A kind-looking middle-aged woman approached the barrier near Marcus. She seemed to understand what had happened and was looking at him with genuine concern. "Are you all right, dear?" she whispered, though she knew he couldn't respond. Her maternal instinct was clearly activated by seeing someone so young in such distress. Marcus wanted to respond, to thank her for her kindness, to explain that he was fine and that this was just a terrible mistake. But his training held firm. No matter what happened, no matter how embarrassing or uncomfortable, he had to maintain his position until properly relieved. The German tour guide was now explaining to his group about the physical demands of being a royal guard. "Sometimes," he said in accented English, "the human body has limitations that even the best training cannot overcome. This is why these positions require such exceptional individuals." Meanwhile, online, Sarah's stream had been shared to Reddit, where users were debating the ethics of filming someone's embarrassing moment. Some defended her, saying it was already happening in public, while others criticized her for not stopping the recording out of respect for the guard's dignity. The story was spreading beyond just social media. News aggregation sites were picking up the trending hashtag, and entertainment blogs were starting to write quick articles about the Royal Guard incident at Buckingham Palace. The speed at which the story was traveling was unprecedented, even for internet standards. Marcus stood there, trapped in his own body and his own embarrassment, completely unaware that he was becoming famous around the world. All he could think about was how badly he had failed, how he had let down centuries of tradition, and how his career as a royal guard might be over before it had really begun. The sound of approaching footsteps on the gravel caught his attention. Sergeant Williams was making his rounds earlier than usual. Perhaps having heard about some kind of disturbance, Marcus's heart sank as he realized he was about to face the most humiliating conversation of his life, and it was going to happen in front of hundreds of strangers and countless cameras. Sergeant Williams approached Marcus's position with the measured pace of a man who had seen everything in his 23 years of military service. The crowd seemed to sense that something official was about to happen, and the murmur of conversations grew louder. Sarah Chen adjusted her phone's angle to capture what she assumed would be the guard getting in trouble for breaking protocol. "Stay strong, mate," Williams whispered as he passed behind Marcus, barely audible to anyone except the young guard. The sergeant had noticed the wet patch immediately, but his experienced eye also saw something else, the shame and devastation written across Marcus's face. Williams had been in similar situations during his early military career and knew exactly what the young man was going through. What happened next surprised everyone, including Marcus. Instead of reprimanding him or relieving him of duty, Sergeant Williams positioned himself strategically between Marcus and the largest group of photographers. He began speaking to the crowd in his authoritative military voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for just a moment," Williams announced. "What you're witnessing today is actually a perfect example of the dedication these guards show to their duty. Despite experiencing what medical professionals call stress incontinence, a common condition that affects millions of people, including many military personnel, this young man has maintained his position and his commitment to protecting this historic location." The crowd fell silent, unsure of how to react. Sarah's livestream viewers were flooding the comments with mixed reactions. Some were praising the sergeant's handling of the situation, while others were still making jokes about what they had witnessed. Williams continued his impromptu speech. "Stress incontinence can be triggered by physical strain, prolonged standing, dehydration, and yes, the natural nervousness that comes with higher responsibility positions. It's a medical condition, not a failure of character or training. This guard has chosen to maintain his post despite personal discomfort, which exemplifies the very dedication we expect from our royal guards." Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. His sergeant wasn't punishing him or sending him away in disgrace. Instead, he was turning the most embarrassing moment of Marcus's life into a teaching moment about duty and medical awareness. A reporter from BBC News, who had arrived after hearing about the social media buzz, stepped forward with her microphone. "Sergeant, can you tell us more about how the Royal Guards handle medical situations during their duties?" Williams seized the opportunity. "Absolutely. Our guards undergo extensive physical and mental training, but they're still human beings with human needs and human bodies. We have protocols for various medical situations, and we always prioritize the health and well-being of our personnel while maintaining security standards." Meanwhile, online the narrative was beginning to shift. Medical professionals were joining the conversation on social media, explaining that stress incontinence was indeed a legitimate medical condition. Dr. Jennifer Martinez, a urologist from New York, posted a thread explaining how common the condition was, especially among people in high-stress occupations. "What we're seeing here isn't a failure," Dr. Martinez tweeted. "It's a very human response to extreme stress and physical demands. The fact that this guard maintained his position shows incredible dedication to his duty." Sarah Chen, still live-streaming, was reading these medical explanations to her viewers in real time. Her tone had completely changed from mocking to educational. "Guys, I'm learning so much about this right now. I had no idea this was such a common medical thing. I feel really bad for making fun of it earlier. The crowd around Marcus was thinning slightly, but many people remained, now more out of curiosity about the unusual situation than to gawk at his embarrassment. The German tour guide was incorporating this unexpected lesson into his tour, explaining to his group about the physical demands of ceremonial military duties. Williams made a subtle hand signal, and 2 other guards appeared from their positions inside the palace grounds. This was clearly a planned rotation, not an emergency removal. The sergeant was handling everything by the book, treating Marcus with the same respect and professionalism shown to any other guard. Thompson, Williams said quietly as the replacement guards approached, "You've completed your first shift with distinction. Report to the medical officer for a routine checkup, then get cleaned up and rest. You're scheduled for duty again tomorrow morning." Marcus felt a wave of relief and gratitude wash over him. He wasn't being fired. He wasn't being disciplined. He was being treated like the professional soldier he had trained to become. With military precision, he performed the ceremonial transfer of duties to his replacement, his movements sharp and confident despite everything that had happened. As Marcus walked away from his post for the first time in over 6 hours, the crowd actually applauded. It started with the kind British woman who had shown concern earlier, and it spread throughout the gathered tourists. Sarah's livestream viewers were expressing similar support in the comments. "That was actually really beautiful," Sarah said to her camera as she watched Marcus disappear into the palace grounds. "Like, this guy just showed us what real dedication looks like. I have so much more respect for these guards now." The story was evolving rapidly online. What had started as potential mockery was transforming into a discussion about human dignity, medical awareness, and the incredible demands placed on military personnel. The hashtag had changed from #RoyalGuard down to #RespectTheGuard, with people sharing stories about their own experiences with medical conditions and high-pressure situations. Major news outlets were now picking up the story, but the angle was completely different from what anyone had expected. Instead of a humiliating viral moment, it was becoming a story about professionalism under pressure and the importance of understanding medical conditions that affect millions of people back in the palace's medical facility. Marcus sat on an examination table while the duty nurse checked his blood pressure and hydration levels. The medical officer, Captain Roberts, was a friendly woman in her 40s who had seen countless guards through various physical challenges. "Thompson, how are you feeling?" she asked with genuine concern. "Honestly, ma'am, I thought my career was over," Marcus replied, his voice still shaky from the emotional roller coaster of the past hour. "Not even close." Captain Roberts smiled. "Sergeant Williams handled that beautifully. By tomorrow morning, this whole incident will be remembered as an example of how we support our personnel, not as a failure on your part." What neither Marcus nor Captain Roberts knew was that the story was about to take another unexpected turn. A video editor in Los Angeles had been following the livestream and social media coverage. He was putting together a compilation video that would show the full context of what had happened, from Marcus's dedication throughout the day to Sergeant Williams's compassionate leadership. The video, titled "The Most Human Moment in Royal Guard History," was about to be uploaded to multiple platforms simultaneously. It would feature medical experts explaining stress incontinence, military historians discussing the physical demands of ceremonial duties, and social media users sharing their own stories of overcoming embarrassing moments. Marcus Thompson had no idea that his worst day was about to become an inspiration to millions of people around the world, or that his single moment of human vulnerability would spark conversations about compassion, medical awareness, and the true meaning of duty and honor. By evening, Marcus Thompson had become the most talked about person on the internet, though he didn't know it yet. After his medical checkup, he had returned to his small apartment in London, showered, and fallen into an exhausted sleep. His phone was on silent mode, as he always kept it during off-duty hours to maintain proper rest before the next shift. Meanwhile, the video compilation created by Jake Morrison, a content creator from Los Angeles, had exploded across every major social media platform. The most human moment in Royal Guard history had been viewed over 2.5 million times in just 4 hours. The video masterfully wove together Sarah's original live stream reactions from medical professionals and commentary from military veterans who praised both Marcus's dedication and Sergeant Williams's leadership. Dr. Amanda Foster, a psychiatrist specializing in military mental health, had been interviewed by CNN about the incident. "What we witnessed today was a textbook example of how to handle a medical emergency with dignity and professionalism," she explained to the evening news anchor. Sergeant Williams turned what could have been a humiliating viral moment into a powerful lesson about human compassion and medical awareness. The story had reached far beyond social media. Major newspapers across the globe were running articles about the incident. The London Times headline read, "Royal Guard's Human Moment Sparks Global Conversation About Medical Conditions." The New York Post went with "Buckingham Palace Guard Becomes Likely Hero After Bathroom Incident." Even more surprisingly, the story had caught the attention of several celebrities and public figures. Actor Ryan Reynolds tweeted, Shout out to the Royal Guard who showed us what real dedication looks like, and to his sergeant who showed us what real leadership looks like. Class act all around. Emma Watson, the British actress known for her activism, posted a lengthy Instagram story about the incident. This guard's experience highlights how we as a society handle vulnerable moments. The initial mockery, followed by understanding and support, shows our capacity for growth and empathy. We need more Sergeant Williams in this world. Back at Buckingham Palace, the media relations team was working overtime. Press Secretary Helen Morrison was fielding calls from news outlets around the world, all wanting official statements about the incident. The palace had initially planned to downplay the situation, but the overwhelmingly positive response had changed their strategy completely. "We are incredibly proud of all our royal guards," Morrison told reporters during an impromptu press conference. "Today's incident demonstrates not only the dedication of our guards but also the professionalism and compassion of our military leadership. We commend Sergeant Williams for his exemplary handling of the situation." The conversation online was becoming increasingly educational. Medical organizations were using the incident as an opportunity to raise awareness about stress, incontinence, and other conditions that affect millions of people. The International Urogynecological Association released a statement praising how the situation had brought attention to a commonly misunderstood medical condition. Sarah Chin's original live stream had been viewed over 8 million times across various platforms. She had gained nearly 500,000 new followers in a single day. But Sarah was using her newfound attention responsibly, partnering with medical professionals to create educational content about stress, incontinence, and anxiety-related conditions. "I want to use this platform to spread awareness, not just entertainment," Sarah posted on her Instagram. "What happened to that guard could happen to anyone, and we should respond with understanding, not mockery." The hashtag Respect the Guard was trending globally, with people sharing their own stories of embarrassing moments and how they overcame them. Veterans were posting about their experiences with high-pressure military situations. Healthcare workers were sharing stories about medical conditions that are often stigmatized. Marcus's fellow guards had been following the online coverage throughout the evening. James Mitchell, who had been scheduled to relieve Marcus that day, was amazed by the response. "I never thought something like this could turn into something so positive," he told his roommate, who was also a palace guard. The Royal Military Academy Sandhurst, where Marcus had completed his officer training, issued a statement of support. "We are proud of all our graduates who serve with distinction in various capacities. Today's events demonstrate the high caliber of leadership and professionalism we strive to instill in all our cadets." But perhaps the most significant response came from an unexpected source. Prince William's office released a personal statement from the future king. "The dedication shown by our royal guards is exceptional, and today's incident only reinforces our admiration for their service. We are particularly impressed by the leadership demonstrated in handling this situation with dignity and compassion." The palace's social media team, recognizing the positive momentum, decided to create educational content about the role of royal guards beyond their ceremonial duties. They posted a series of videos showing the extensive training, the physical demands, and the important security functions that the guards performed. Medical schools across the UK were already planning to use the incident as a case study in their curricula. Professor David Richardson from King's College, London's medical school, announced that they would be developing a module about stress-related medical conditions in high-pressure professions, using the Royal Guard incident as a primary example. The British military was also taking notice. General Patricia Hayes, the highest-ranking female officer in the British Army, praised the incident as an example of evolved military leadership. Sergeant Williams demonstrated the kind of compassionate command that represents the future of military leadership, she stated in an interview with the BBC. Meanwhile, merchandise related to the incident was already appearing online, though most of it was tasteful and focused on supporting medical awareness rather than mocking the situation. T-shirts reading "Respect the Guard" and "Human First, Soldier Always" were being sold by various vendors, with many promising to donate proceeds to medical research organizations. The incident was also inspiring academic discussions. Sociology professors were using it as an example of how social media can amplify both negative and positive responses to vulnerable moments. Media studies experts were analyzing how the narrative had shifted from mockery to support within just a few hours. Dr. Michael Chen, a professor of social psychology at Oxford University, was quoted in The Guardian. "This incident represents a fascinating case study in digital empathy. We witnessed the internet's capacity for both cruelty and compassion, often from the same individuals. As more context and education became available, as Marcus slept peacefully in his apartment, unaware of his global fame, the conversation about his experience was evolving into something much larger than anyone could have predicted. What had started as a single embarrassing moment was becoming a catalyst for discussions about human dignity, medical awareness, military life, and the power of compassionate leadership. The real test would come the next morning when Marcus would wake up to discover that his name was known around the world. and that he had inadvertently become the face of a movement promoting understanding and respect for people facing medical challenges in high-pressure situations. Marcus Thompson woke up at 5:30 a.m., exactly as he had every morning since beginning his Royal Guard training. His phone remained on silent, and he followed his usual routine of shower, breakfast, and preparation for the day ahead. He was scheduled for another shift at 8 a.m., and despite yesterday's embarrassing incident, he was determined to prove himself as a capable and reliable guard. It wasn't until he stepped outside his apartment building that Marcus realized something extraordinary had happened overnight. Mrs. Patterson, his elderly neighbor who usually barely acknowledged him, was standing by her door with a warm smile and a cup of tea. "Marcus, dear, I saw the news about you," she said kindly. "You made us all so proud. You showed real character yesterday." She handed him the tea and patted his arm gently. "The whole building's been talking about how brave you were." Marcus was confused but touched by her unexpected kindness. He thanked her for the tea and hurried toward the tube station, wondering what exactly Mrs. Patterson had seen on the news. His confusion only deepened when the station attendant, a man who had never spoken to him before, gave him a thumbs up and said, "Good on you, mate. That sergeant of yours is a legend." On the train, Marcus noticed people looking at him with what seemed like recognition and approval. A teenage girl was whispering to her mother while pointing discreetly in his direction. An elderly gentleman nodded respectfully when their eyes met. Marcus began to feel increasingly puzzled about what was happening when he arrived at Buckingham Palace. The mystery deepened further. The security guards at the staff entrance greeted him with unusual enthusiasm. "Thompson, you're famous, lad," called out Officer Davies, who was normally quite reserved. "Check your phone, mate. You're all over the internet." With growing anxiety, Marcus pulled out his phone and turned off silent mode. Immediately, his screen was flooded with notifications. Missed calls from numbers he didn't recognize, text messages from friends and family, and social media alerts that seemed endless. His heart began racing as he realized something major had happened. His mother had sent 17 text messages, starting with "Marcus, are you okay? We saw the news," and ending with "We're so proud of you, sweetheart. Call us when you can." His younger sister Emma had sent a screenshot of a Twitter post with millions of likes, showing the video of yesterday's incident with the caption, "This is my big brother," showing what real dedication looks like. Marcus found a quiet corner and began scrolling through the notifications, his eyes widening with each new revelation. The video of his incident had been viewed tens of millions of times across different platforms. Comments were pouring in from people around the world, and the vast majority were supportive and praising this. "God is a hero for showing us that being human doesn't make you weak." Read one comment with 50,000 likes. "That sergeant's response was absolutely perfect. This is leadership at its finest." Read another with 35,000 likes. News articles from major publications were calling him the guard who reminded us we're all human and an unlikely symbol of dignity under pressure. Marcus couldn't believe what he was reading. The worst moment of his life had somehow become an inspiration to millions of people. Sergeant Williams appeared beside him, having noticed Marcus's shocked expression. "Thompson, I see you've discovered your fame," he said with a slight smile. "Come with me. We need to have a chat before your shift begins." Williams led Marcus to his office, where several other senior officers were waiting. The atmosphere was serious but not hostile. Colonel Sarah Henderson, the commanding officer of the Royal Guard unit, stood up as they entered. "Thompson, please sit down," Colonel Henderson said. "I imagine you're feeling overwhelmed by all of this attention." Marcus nodded, still processing everything he had just discovered. "First, I want you to know that you have the full support of your command structure," the colonel continued. "What happened yesterday was handled with exceptional professionalism by Sergeant Williams, and your conduct throughout the entire incident was exemplary." She pulled up a tablet showing various news articles and social media posts. "This situation has created an unprecedented opportunity for positive public engagement with the military. The response has been overwhelmingly supportive, not just of you personally, but of our entire institution." Major Roberts, the palace's media liaison officer, joined the conversation. "Marcus, we've received interview requests from major news networks around the world. The BBC, CNN, Good Morning America, and dozens of others want to speak with you. We're not requiring you to do any interviews, but if you're willing, this could be an incredible opportunity to educate the public about military service and medical awareness." Marcus felt dizzy trying to process all the information. "Sir, I don't understand how something so embarrassing became something positive. I thought I had disgraced the uniform." Sergeant Williams leaned forward. "Thompson, what you experienced yesterday was a medical condition, not a character flaw. My response was simply following proper protocol for supporting a guard experiencing a medical issue. The public's positive reaction shows that people appreciate honesty and humanity in their military personnel." Colonel Henderson showed Marcus some of the most popular responses to the incident. Medical organizations were using his story to raise awareness about stress incontinence. Military veterans were sharing their own stories of challenging moments during service. Parents were explaining to their children about compassion and understanding for people experiencing difficulties. You've inadvertently become the face of a movement about treating people with dignity during vulnerable moments, Major Roberts explained. The hashtag Respect the Guard has raised over £200,000 for military mental health charities in just 24 hours. Marcus was stunned. Not only was he not in trouble, but his embarrassing moment had somehow raised money for military mental health support. What happens now? He asked quietly. That depends on what you're comfortable with, Colonel Henderson replied. You can return to normal duty and let this attention fade naturally. Or you can embrace this platform and use it to educate people about military service and medical awareness. Either choice has our full support. Before Marcus could respond, there was a knock on the office door. A aide entered and whispered something to Colonel Henderson, whose eyebrows raised in surprise. Thompson, it seems we have a very special visitor who wants to meet you, she announced. His Royal Highness Prince William has requested a brief audience with you before you begin your shift today. Marcus felt his legs go weak. Not only had his embarrassing incident made him internet famous, but now he was about to meet the future King of England because of it. The aide led him through corridors he had never seen before, toward a private meeting room in the palace. As they walked, Marcus could hear the crowds outside the palace gates. They sounded larger and more excited than usual. Through a window, he caught a glimpse of the gathering. Crowd had noticed several signs reading "We support our guards" and "Thank you, Marcus." People had actually come to the palace to show their support for him personally. The realization hit him that his life had changed completely in the span of 18 hours. Yesterday morning he had been an anonymous new guard hoping to do his job without making mistakes. Now he was walking through Buckingham Palace to meet Prince William. With millions of people around the world knowing his name and story, whatever happened in the next few minutes would determine not just how he handled his newfound fame, but potentially how he could use this unexpected platform to make a positive impact on issues that clearly mattered to so many people. Prince William stood up as Marcus entered the elegantly furnished private meeting room. The future king was more casual and approachable than Marcus had imagined. Wearing a simple navy sweater and khakis rather than formal royal attire, his genuine smile immediately put Marcus at ease. Though the young guard's heart was still racing from the surreal nature of the situation, "Marcus, please sit down," Prince William said warmly, gesturing to a comfortable chair across from him. "First, I want to thank you for your service to the crown. What you experienced yesterday, and how you handled it, has impressed not just me, but people around the world." Marcus managed to find his voice. "Your Royal Highness, I'm honored to meet you, though I wish it were under different circumstances. I feel like I let down the institution." Prince William leaned forward with understanding in his eyes. "Marcus, do you know what I see when I look at this situation? I see a young man who endured physical discomfort for hours out of dedication to his duty. I see a sergeant who showed exemplary leadership and compassion, and I see the best of British character in how the public has responded, with support rather than mockery." The prince pulled out his phone and showed Marcus some of the responses he had been reading. "Look at this message from a veteran who said your story helped him seek treatment for his own medical condition. Here's one from a teacher who used your experience to teach her students about empathy and understanding. This is the impact you've had." Marcus looked at the messages with amazement. People were sharing how his story had affected them personally, how it had sparked conversations in their families about treating others with dignity, and how it had encouraged them to be more open about their own medical challenges. "Your Royal Highness, I never intended for any of this to happen," Marcus said quietly. "The best movements rarely start intentionally," Prince William replied. "What matters now is how we use this moment. I've been discussing this situation with military leadership and medical professionals. We'd like to propose something to you," the prince explained. That they wanted to create a new initiative focused on medical awareness and mental health support for military personnel. Marcus would be invited to become an ambassador for the program, working with medical professionals to educate both military personnel and the public about conditions like stress incontinence, anxiety, and other challenges faced by people in high-pressure occupations. This would involve some media appearances, speaking at military training facilities, and working with medical organizations, Prince William continued. "But you would continue your duties as a royal guard as well. We believe your unique experience and the public's positive response make you the perfect person to lead this." Conversation. Marcus was overwhelmed by the offer. Less than 24 hours ago, he thought his career was over. Now the future king was asking him to become the face of a national health awareness campaign while continuing to serve as a royal guard. "I would be honored, Your Royal Highness," Marcus said, his voice stronger now. "If my embarrassing moment can help other people, then something good will have come from it." Prince William smiled broadly. "Excellent. There's one more thing. The public response has been so positive that we're planning a special ceremony next week to formally recognize both you and Sergeant Williams for exemplifying the values we want to see in military service. You'll be receiving a commendation for dedication to duty under challenging circumstances." After the meeting, Marcus returned to his post outside the palace gates, but everything was different now. The crowd that had gathered was unlike any he had seen before. Instead of just tourists taking photos, there were people holding signs of support, veterans who had come to show solidarity, and families who wanted to teach their children about the importance of treating everyone with dignity. Sarah Chen was there too. Having flown back to London specifically to meet Marcus in person, she had partnered with several medical organizations to create a series of educational videos about stress-related medical conditions, and she wanted Marcus to be involved if he was willing. "I feel responsible for how this all started," Sarah told him during a brief break between his duties. "I want to make sure we use this attention to actually help people, not just create entertainment." The media attention continued to grow throughout the day, but it had evolved into something much more meaningful than typical viral fame. Medical experts were appearing on news programs to discuss stress, incontinence, and anxiety-related conditions. Military leaders were talking about the importance of supporting personnel through medical challenges. Educators were discussing how to teach empathy and understanding to young people. Marcus's story had sparked a global conversation about human dignity, medical awareness, and compassionate leadership. The hashtag respect the Guard had evolved into a broader movement about treating all people with understanding during their vulnerable moments. By the end of the week, Marcus had appeared on several major news programs, always alongside medical professionals who could provide expert context about the conditions he had experienced. His calm, thoughtful responses and obvious dedication to helping others impressed everyone who interviewed him. The special ceremony Prince William had mentioned took place the following Tuesday. Both Marcus and Sergeant Williams received commendations for their exemplary service, but more importantly, they announced the launch of the Guardian Health Initiative, a comprehensive program focused on medical awareness and mental health support for military personnel and first responders. Marcus's parents, sister, and girlfriend attended the ceremony. His mother cried with pride as she watched her son, who had been devastated by embarrassment just a week earlier, now being honored for his courage and dedication. His sister Emma posted about the ceremony on social media, writing, "My brother turned his worst moment into a movement that's helping thousands of people. That's the Marcus I've always known." The initiative Marcus helped launch went on to provide medical support and education to thousands of military personnel. Medical schools incorporated stress-related conditions into their standard curricula. Military training programs added modules about supporting colleagues through medical challenges. 6 months later, Marcus was still serving as a Royal Guard, but he had also become a recognized advocate for medical awareness and military mental health. He spoke at conferences, worked with medical researchers, and helped develop training programs for military leadership. The video of his original incident was still viewed regularly on social media, but now it was primarily used as an educational tool. Medical organizations linked to it in their awareness campaigns. Military academies used it as an example of both dedication under pressure and proper leadership response to medical situations. Marcus often reflected on how a single moment of human vulnerability had transformed not just his own life, but had created a lasting positive impact for thousands of others. His worst day had indeed become something that changed everything, just not in a way anyone could have predicted. The young man who had once stood in embarrassed silence outside Buckingham Palace had found his voice and was using it to ensure that others facing similar challenges would be met with understanding and support rather than mockery and shame. In the end, Marcus Thompson's story became proof that our most human moments, handled with dignity and compassion, can become our most powerful opportunities to create positive change in the world.